Plenty, though, upstream. Thunderstorms as well would not surprise here. I mean, will be a mix of sun, clouds, windy, blustery day, and some off and on rain here. We do see this initial front in the morning and then a little bit better pattern in the afternoon, but it'll be a breezy, blustery day. 60s on the temps. All right, Sal's here. I think he can start just about anywhere, but he'll begin with
the Bay Bridge. I just think people want to know that the Bay Bridge is a little damp, but it's not super wet. And that's going to help us. It's backed up beyond the maze, probably a 30 or 35-minute delay if you're at the very end of the line. But, you know, on a day like today, that's not too bad. It seems to be moving rather efficiently for this time of the morning. Looking at the peninsula, it's okay. No problems in Daly City or South City or on the San Mateo Bridge. You can see it there. Look at the water. Steve and I have been talking about the wind. If you have a second, come to the TV and look to the right there. Looks like a bunch of wind is moving those waves. So, yeah, that's what you're dealing with. 7:02, let's go back to the desk.
Sal, thank you. California voters overwhelmingly approved Proposition 50 last night. 50 calls for a temporary redistricting and a new congressional map that heavily favors Democrats. Our Tori Gaines live in studio here with the new voting numbers, Tori, and what they mean.
Good morning, Garcia. It was a decisive night for California politics, and the Prop 50 vote will have ramifications on California's congressional representation from 2026 to 2030. Now, Prop 50 passed with more than 60% of the vote, only 36% of California voters saying no. Now, California's Democratic leaders have made promises to voters to push back against the Trump administration and Republican policies across the nation. This is one of the first big steps we've seen this year, and Democrats are celebrating the win. Now, California has 52 congressional districts, 43 of which went to Democrats in the last election. Now, the redrawn maps target 5 of those 9 Republican districts.
In one fell swoop, political insiders grabbed the power away from the people. But like Assemblyman Tongipa said, the fight is not over. What they have done is expose themselves. So when we go into next year, into the midterm election, the general election, it's going to be about the issues. Republicans will continue to fight for the best interest of Californians. And I truly believe that the Republican Party is on the right side of history in this case.
But Democratic leaders from Governor Gavin Newsom to Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi say this is a necessary response to Texas's redistricting plan that was approved earlier this year. Governor Newsom putting out a call to arms to Democrat-led states after the results came in on Tuesday.
We need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with their remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026.
Now, coming up at 8, we'll dive into which districts could see big changes after those 2026 midterms. Dave and Garcia, back to you.
All right, Tori, thank you. Time now 7:04. Critics of Prop 50 didn't have a whole lot to celebrate last night. Some of them gathered in Los Gatos at a watch party at a sports bar. The atmosphere was subdued. It was announced on TV that the measure would pass just seconds after the polls closed last night.
I think nationally, we're going to see a lot more redistricting. This is just beginning now, and I think that in the end, Republicans will end up winning on this and picking up more seats than the Democrats.
Now, several local Republican groups decided not to hold watch parties, anticipating Prop 50 would easily win. Republicans say the Democrats deceived voters.
Because the people of California have been lied to. They've been lied to by Governor Newsom and the elites here in Sacramento. And these election results just proved that they campaigned on a whole lot of lies and drove emotionally charged arguments to get people to vote against their best interests.
Now, the new congressional maps will be in place through the 2030 election. Already, several Democrats say they'll be running in newly created districts currently held by Republicans.
The 2026 midterm election is 1 year away, and no matter what happens with states redistricting, Congress will see a major change. A record 31 House representatives will not seek re-election. 20 are Republicans, 11 are Democrats. Political analysts say if more states start redistricting, even more representatives will likely leave. For example, if you're a Republican in Congress in a California district that'll be rezoned, you may choose to retire rather than face a long uphill fight that will likely end in a loss.
Our time now 7:06. A ballot measure in the South Bay also shaping up to be a referendum on President Trump. In Santa Clara County, voters decided to approve Measure A, a 5/8 cents sales tax that would start next April and last for 5 years. 57% of voters supported that measure. Now, supporters say the tax is needed to counter the economic impact of cuts by the federal government. Those changes reduce the amount of funding that Santa Clara County will get from the federal government, including for Medicaid programs. Measure A will not offset the entire amount, but supporters say it will help keep health and public safety services afloat.
We need the tax money to keep all the services in Santa Clara County running.
And if we are to contract or consolidate or close in any way, it impacts every resident, regardless of their income, regardless of who provides their insurance. And I think we have made that very righteous case.
Now, critics argue the county needs to cut spending in order to stay solvent. Supporters say the measure will generate about $330 million a year to be used for local services, including hospitals, mental health, and public safety. Well, new this morning, a federal judge in Rhode Island has blocked the Trump administration's attempt to withhold billions of dollars in transportation funding from states that refuse to cooperate with immigration enforcement. The ruling says that the Department of Transportation and Secretary Sean Duffy blatantly overstepped their authority. The judge also wrote, quote, "The Constitution demands the court set aside this lawless behavior."
The government shutdown is entering its 36th day now and is now the longest on record. Airports continue to struggle with flight delays across the country. Air traffic controllers are working without pay. Many are calling sick, while others work overtime, which is creating major staffing gaps nationwide. The Secretary of Transportation warns he may be forced to close parts of the airspace if the air traffic controller shortage worsens.
The longer this goes on, every day these hardworking Americans have bills they have to pay, and they're being forced to make decisions and choices. Do they go to work as an air traffic controller, or do they have to find a different job?
13,000 controllers could miss a second paycheck this week. The FAA says nearly half of all major air traffic control facilities are short-staffed. Many airports are warning there could be mass flight cancellations if conditions continue to deteriorate. People we spoke with at Oakland Airport this morning were not happy.
Yeah, it's crazy. People are going to miss their holiday plans. They've been planning for months what they're going to do. They're going to miss their friends and family. It's just ridiculous. They can't get their act together.
Aviation experts say short-haul flights are likely to be impacted first as airlines try to consolidate flights. Right now, though, all three major Bay Area airports tell us they've seen no big local disruptions due to the government shutdown.
Time is 7:09. Marin County has some slow traffic. That's where a lot of the rain was. There was a crash southbound 101, the vicinity of the Civic Center, and it really does have traffic slow heading on south from Roland Boulevard in Marin. Usually it's not this slow. I mean, usually it is slow, but look, it's pretty slow this morning. Our speeds are way down. So if you are a Marin County driver, you say, yeah, it's going to be slow. Well, 14 miles an hour, not optimal. Not good, Bob. This is a look at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. That's a little more normal, backed up before the MacArthur Maze. On the peninsula, we're looking good. As we go from north to south, the rain is not as heavy as Steve has been telling us, but it's windy out there. You can tell. If you just look at the water in this picture, it's being blown around out there. So if you drive a small car or something that's likely to be affected by wind, now you know. 7:10. Let's go back to the desk.
All right, Sal, it was not just Prop 50 that voters were deciding yesterday. Democrats are praising what they call a blue wave in key political races around the country. We have details of the big wins and what it means for the Democratic Party going forward.
Video here of a fiery plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky. Federal authorities now taking up the investigation into the crash and resulting deaths.
Jacoby & Myers has been a proud part of the California community since 1972. We've stood by our neighbors, helping hundreds of thousands of families get the justice they deserve. Whether it's fighting insurance companies or fighting for you in court, we'll stand up for you. At Jacoby & Myers, we know the stakes: your family, your health, your future. For over 50 years, we've been California's trusted name in legal care. If you've been injured, call us today at 1-800-5-MILLION, because you deserve justice.
Some of the stories we're following here at 7:14. The window to apply to be San Mateo County's next sheriff closes today. Applicants must live in San Mateo County and meet certain state requirements, such as having law enforcement experience or a certification from the Commission on Officer Training Standards. Applications are open until noon. The board will conduct its final interviews and make a selection at a public meeting November 12th. The driver of a U-Haul that reversed toward officers at Coast Guard Island, Alameda, during an immigration protest is now facing federal charges. 26-year-old Brendan Monroe Thompson has been charged with assaulting federal officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Authorities say Thompson was shot in the back, then abandoned the U-Haul truck nearby.
Our time now 7:15 to a developing story from Kentucky. We're told that firefighters have almost put out the fire that broke out when a UPS plane crashed and exploded seconds after taking off in Kentucky. The crash and explosion happened on the far side of the runway. Now, flights have slowly resumed at the airport this morning after all air traffic was shut down. That plane was filled with enough jet fuel to fly to Hawaii. As the plane was speeding up down the runway to take off, video shows one of the engines on fire. And then seconds later, the plane crashed and there was an immediate fireball. 7 people are known to have died, including 4 people who were on the ground and were not on the plane. 11 others were hurt.
I've also spoken with a board member from the NTSB. There'll be 28 folks from NTSB coming. They're sending a large crew to do the investigation and deal with this disaster.
Now, the governor also says a nearby petroleum recycling business appeared to be, quote, hit pretty directly in that plane crash. The airport's expected to resume operations this morning.
Democrats are celebrating key wins in several off-year contests this morning, delivering a clear message to President Trump less than a year into his second term. The results set the stage for an intense 2026, with both parties now scrambling to adjust their strategy for the midterm elections. Our Andre Sr. here in studio with more on the big victories for Democrats. Andre.
Well, Gussie, the three biggest races outside of California were all won by Democrats. They are set to be new governors in New Jersey and Virginia and New York City, elected a new mayor in the race that captured the attention of the nation. 34-year-old Democrat Zohran Mamdani won the mayor's election. The state assemblyman became the first mayoral candidate to receive more than 1 million votes since 1969. Independent candidate and former governor Andrew Cuomo came in second. Both candidates spoke to supporters after the race was called.
You have delivered a mandate for change. A mandate for a new kind of politics. A mandate for a city we can afford. And a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that.
And as they start to transition to government, we will all help any way we can because we need our New York City government to work.
Mamdani marks several firsts for New York City. He'll be the city's first Muslim mayor, the first of South Asian heritage, and the first born in Africa. He will also become the city's youngest mayor in more than a century. Out of Virginia, where Democrat Abigail Spanberger has been elected governor, beating Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. The former CIA officer is the state's first female governor. Spanberger will succeed Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, who was not allowed to run for a second term due to the state's term limits.
We sent a message to the whole world that in 2025, Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship. We chose our Commonwealth over chaos.
And in New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill was elected governor. She beat Republican Jack Ciattarelli, who was endorsed by President Trump. Sherrill, who is a member of Congress, will succeed term-limited Democrat Governor Phil Murphy. Sherrill will be the state's second female governor. These results offer a major morale boost for Democrats and a cautionary tale for the president and the GOP as the nation looks ahead to the crucial 2026 midterm elections. Back to you.
Andre, thank you. 7:19, let's get out the door. I think James Torres said it best in the last hour, Sal. It's a two hands on the wheel kind of day.
Yeah. It certainly is. And the farther north you go, the more the weather's going to be an issue. And that's why I expected more trouble in Marin. We have a crash south on 101 on the way between the Civic Center. It's closer to the Freitas Parkway, but boy, it's slowing traffic from almost all through Novato until you get past Freitas, and then you get down to Central San Rafael. Bay Bridge, more normal, backed up beyond the maze, and the metering lights are on. San Mateo, Barton Bridge are okay, but the wind is going to get your attention. Yes, both hands on the wheel, even if it's not raining where you are. 7:19, let's talk more about the weather. Here's Steve.
Sal, Debbie emailed me and said 101 near Marin City. Slow down.
Yes. You have no choice now. There's a big crash there.
Well, there you go. All right. Some of the wind gusts here. Dave, we're going to delay that hike up Mount Diablo today. 66 miles per hour. Lucas Valley, 66. La Honda, 56. Lime Ridge, many of you maybe hiked there as well, 48. SFO and Oakland both at 40. There are too many to list. I've seen some over 67 to 70. Some of the really higher peaks, though. A lot of them are PG&E sites. Palo Alto southeast 25, Hayward south gusting to 28, Livermore 29, there's SFO 40, and Half Moon Bay 35. They have been up to 40 miles per hour. And in the hills east of Montara, 1,300 feet, there was one gust 67 miles per hour. High wind warning for the Marin headlands, the Marin Coast, Point Reyes, and Sonoma Coast. Then wind advisory elsewhere, 40, 50 plus miles per hour. The front itself is moving through, and as it moves through, it's kind of falling apart to the south, but it did its damage to the north. It doesn't mean we're done. I think there'll still be little waves moving through, giving us some off and on rain, but a mix of sun, clouds, and a blustery day. Cazadero, West Healdsburg, 1.33 inches. Yountville had over 1 inch of rain, and Calistoga just shy of 1 inch and 10/100ths at 1.09. I try to do as many updates as I can, but boy, they're happening fast. Mount Veeder, 1.07. San Rafael's had really good rain, over 1 inch. Santa Rosa now 83/100ths. That's in town. Napa just shy of 8/10. Sonoma 3/4. Novato almost 3/4. Petaluma 1/2 inch, and Tiburon and Rodeo have both picked up 1/3 of an inch. So you can see they're on the back edge of that. So Mendocino County has gone through. It's been 1 inch plus, many up there locations. Lake County, and now starting to fall apart over Napa. But still, you can see south of that, there's noticeable holes in it. Doesn't mean you won't get rain, but the amounts really won't be anything close to what they had in the north. Now, I will say this, even Thursday into Friday, fast little moving systems could produce a little bit more rain, especially Marin County north. So while the initial front is going through, we're not done yet, but we'll be winding it down. 50s on the temps here to 60s. This is all about wind and thunderstorms up in this area. Look at that right there along 80 near Rockland. So watch out for thunderstorms and wind. High. There's been gusts, I think 90 miles an hour above 9,000 feet near Kirkwood. Maybe some light snow at lake level tonight late. But again, it's just too warm right now. It's more about rain and thunderstorms. So we'll get some sun breaks, but then that wind will not be really going anywhere. So the wind have changed today. Everyone's in on that. Not everyone's in on the rain here, but the initial front is going through here in the morning. 60s on the temps, except for the areas to the north. I mean, there will be a couple little bands going through Thursday, maybe early Friday. After that, I think we look warmer as we go into the weekend.
Steve, thank you. The mayor and vice mayor of a small town in Marin County both up for a recall. The housing project that's at the center of the effort, and how voters weighed in on whether they should keep their jobs.
Well, welcome back to Mornings on 2 at 7:25. These are live pictures. We're looking around at the Walton Lighthouse in Santa Cruz. It is always good to see this pretty shot, even though it is surrounded by clouds. You can't see a whole lot. The birds, seagulls are flying, and you can see the the waters. A little rough out there, and I know it's got to be cold out there, but we wanted to take you out there in Santa Cruz. Meantime, in Marin County, it appears that 2 members of the town council in Fairfax will keep their jobs after a recall effort.
Right now, the current mayor, Liesl Blasch, has support from 55% of voters who say she should stay in office. The other Fairfax council member facing a recall is Vice Mayor Stephanie Hellman. Let's pop up some new numbers here for Stephanie Hellman. It appears 46% say that she should be recalled, which means 54% want her to stay in office. Fairfax recall effort focused on a 243-unit building and whether it met state housing mandates. Some residents say the plan was made without proper fire and flood safety considerations. Ballots still being counted. The Secretary of State will certify all results December 12th.
Our time is 7:26. A power play at the Supreme Court as the court could curb President Trump and his tariff powers. We tell you about a new legal tool he's got his eye on in case the Supreme Court does not rule in his favor.
Fired, rehired, then fired again. The FBI's back and forth moves affecting agents tasked with investigating President Trump's actions after his 2020 election loss.
I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come.
California is redrawing its congressional maps after voters passed Proposition 50. We'll take a look at the voter turnout and what it means for our local democracy and engagement. And if you haven't felt it yet, expect powerful winds and rain moving across the Bay Area for this morning's commute. These are live pictures. Roads are wet. We'll tell you where the weather's already hit and how long you'll be driving through wet, slippery conditions.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Mornings on 2. I'm Dave Clark.
I'm Gassia Mikaelian. It's Wednesday, November 5th. This is that morning you've been hearing about for almost a week.
Yeah.
Steve Paulson, it's essentially delivering right as you said it would.
Well, about what, a week, 10 days ago, I said around November 6th. I think
You did.
Came in a day early.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
sometimes things line up, and that's because the mojo went in phase 6. All right, I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but that's a bullish sign the first week of November. And we take a look here. That's an angry sky right there. Ooh, that's an angry sky. Now, the rain is tapering off south. It's made it to San Jose, but this is more about wind. 50s on the temps to 60s under mostly cloudy skies. We've had some roaring gusts here. I've seen a few higher than this, but they're really high elevations. Mount Diablo, Lucas Valley, 66. La Honda, 56. Lime Ridge, 48. SFO and Oakland have been 40 miles per hour. I think Livermore Airport, San Jose have all been in there as well, about 38 to 40, and Half Moon Bay's been 40. High wind warning out in Marin Coast, Sonoma Coast. Elsewhere, it's a wind advisory. System's going through. So we're barreling through here, and then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, but a blustery day. Rainfall's been heaviest where we thought it'd be, to the north. Cazadero, West Healdsburg, Yountville, and Calistoga, all over an inch today. All right, Sal's here. I know the combination of wind and rain has made for tough. Marin County?
Yeah, Marin, they cleared that crash we had near the Civic Center, but it's not great on 101 heading south out of Roland Boulevard or Novato. Actually, even longer now, you will see it. It's pretty busy out there, but the crash is cleared. In the East Bay, we have kind of a normal-ish looking commute. On 80, it's slow from El Sobrante all the way to Oakland, and at the Bay Bridge, we're backed up before the maze. I do want to put on your radar northbound 680 to eastbound 580, which is the ramp. It's basically coming up this way and trying to head out toward Livermore. That ramp is closed because of a crash. There are some detours in place. That is the non-commute direction, but I just want to let you know it's there. 7:32, let's get back to the headlines.
The combination of rain and wind is causing problems across much of the Bay Area, but especially up north.
Now, KTVU's James Torres is in Marin County right now. So, James, what's it like out there right now?
Yeah, we saw the hardest rain come down closer to 5 o'clock, 5:30 this morning. The rain is still coming down just a little bit here, not as much as it was before the sun rose, but that wind has really been sticking around, and that is causing some people over at the ferry terminal, at least that we've been speaking to keep a close eye on some of the schedules this morning, because we know that a strong wind can mean a strong current and some tough conditions out on the bay. But luckily at this time, no delays or any cancellations of any ferries headed in any direction, whether it be from here in Larkspur to San Francisco or in any other way. But certainly on the roads, we're starting to see some troubles here because roads are slick, and we know the wind is causing some wind advisories on the Bay Area bridges as well. But we've talked to some people who are bracing the storm early this morning. They say the rain, for the most part, is usually a good thing.
Gotta have it. The yards are getting dried out. The people like the rain a little bit. It's not so bad.
I mean, it's not bad. Being inside is a lot nicer than like having to actually sit outside. Choppiness actually isn't too bad unless it's like super windy. So it's nicer than people expect.
Now, we know that there have been some power outages. PG&E reporting close to 2,000 people in the San Rafael area, 2,000 customers, I should say, that are without power at this point. Not sure if that is directly related to the storm, but we know that PG&E will be having a news conference later where some of their leaders will be discussing their responses to these storm impacts throughout the day today. And we also know that some first responders here are responding to reports of wires down, trees down, nothing that is getting in the way of any major traffic or causing any major concerns, but certainly some evidence that this morning and this storm is causing a very busy morning for some people today. We are live this morning in Marin County. I'm James Torres, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America.
Governor Newsom touting the results of California's special election. He gave a lot of his energy, time, and support to Prop 50 in hopes of passing the measure which will likely reshape our state's political landscape. While Californians were voting on redistricting, Prop 50 really turned into a Democrats versus President Trump battle on the airways. Let's get some insight into who went to the polls up in the North Bay. We welcome Evelyn Mendez with the Registrar of Voters in Sonoma County. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you.
What was turnout there in Sonoma County?
So we had about 50% so far. We have
161,430 people that turned in their ballots and that are good in our office as of today.
Is that more than you expected?
I think, well, this county is historically a high turnout county. A lot of people come out to vote. I think that's pretty high. We're expecting about 65%. And, by the time this is over, but we don't know because there are a lot of people that went to the vote centers and came into our office yesterday.
So how long will it take before all the votes are counted?
Well, this ballot there's only one thing on it, and so I think it'll be a little bit faster. We have been processing them faster than normal, so I think it'll go pretty fast and not all the way to the December deadline.
So if you're at about 50% right now, out of curiosity, what's turnout on like a presidential election year?
In a presidential, it could be up to 85. Wow. So in a statewide special election or in any special election, it's actually a pretty good number at this point in the process.
All right, that's great. All right, so Santa Rosa, they're far and away the biggest city in Sonoma County, almost 180,000 people. What did the election look like there?
Well, you know what? It's exciting because even in the smaller towns and cities, there were a lot of people that were showing up. We were monitoring it throughout the day, and how many people were voting in person. And throughout the day, it was a steady flow, like easily over 100 by the time a normal vote center would have like 40 or 50. So it was pretty good. And the vote centers worked really hard to get their ballots back to our office pretty fast. So it was a good day.
You seem to be in such a bouncy mood. I mean, essentially, did yesterday the voting process work exactly as it should have?
Well, this is my first election in Sonoma County as the ROV. So it ran really smooth, and everyone is asking me, how is it in comparison to the other counties or even when you worked at the state? And I said, I was not expecting it to go this smooth, something that was called, 72 days before. I think our team was ready for it, and it was election. We know how to do elections.
All right. And can I ask you about something that was said to maybe affect Californians living in rural areas? This rule of, not dropping your ballot in the mail at the last minute because it might not make it to one of the few sort of registered mail centers. I know parts of Sonoma County are rural. Is there any concern that someone who, let's say, dropped their ballot in the mailbox late yesterday, their vote may not be counted?
Well, I think throughout the last few weeks, we have been emphasizing get it in a official ballot drop box at a vote center or in the USPS collection boxes. But we were overemphasizing the fact that people needed to check the times that the ballot got picked up. So we did have some concerns about some of the vote centers that were a little farther. But even those ones, they managed to vote in person, or a lot of people came to our office and voted in person.
All right, well, Sonoma County, an example to all. Evelyn Mendez with the Registrar of Voters. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Evelyn. Time is 7:38. Happening now. Arguments are underway inside the U.S. Supreme Court about what's at the heart of the Trump administration's economic agenda. The court will decide whether President Trump exceeded his authority in bypassing Congress and imposing sweeping global tariffs. California Attorney General Rob Bonta is leading a coalition of attorneys generals from around the country in this lawsuit. The president cited his 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act for allowing him to unilaterally charge tariffs on other countries. A lower court ruled against President Trump, saying the tariffs were an illegal overreach.
The FBI fired, rehired, then fired again the agents assigned to investigate President Trump's alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. This happened over the span of 2 days this week. FBI Director Kash Patel fired the agents Monday. A U.S. attorney pushed back, and later the same day, the agents were reinstated. Then Tuesday, Patel fired them again. Firings are the latest action in what's been a tumultuous time for the Washington field office.
Time 7:40, and we still have a lot of slow traffic in Marin County, even though the crash that we had near the Freitas Parkway is gone, but it's still pretty slow from Novato all the way down to central San Rafael. And then southern Marin has a little slowing, not much though. The Richmond Bridge is slow, and 80 is also slow. I want to mention that the East Bay commutes are pretty typical. This is a look at the Bay Bridge. It's a 30 to 35-minute delay. And the East Bay commutes are typical. There is a ramp closure northbound 680 to eastbound 580, which for now is the non-commute direction. and we haven't had a lot of South Bay action, but it's crowded anyway, and it's windy, as Steve and I have been telling you. 7:40, let's talk to Steve about the weather.
See, I told you to go to bed early last night.
I'm glad I did.
Same here. All right. Actually, I didn't. I was watching a hockey game, but what can I do? All right, Mount Diablo and Lucas Valley, 66-mile-per-hour gusts. La Honda, 56. Lime Ridge, 48. SFO in Oakland, 40 miles per hour. And there's still some pretty good gusts up there. SFO, 40. Half Moon Bay Airport was up to 40. Now only 32. I think I saw 38 at the Livermore Airport, and also San Jose and Mountain View. Seems to be coming down a little bit, but still that wind advisory goes until 4 o'clock. Even if it's not a windy day, it'll be a blustery day. The high wind warning verified for sure from the Marin Coast up along the Sonoma coast. Our system is blasted through. I mean, we're on the backside of it almost, and it's falling apart. When they topple over like this, let's see if I can do this or not. When they kind of topple over this way, that means they're falling apart. But not before it did what we thought it would in the North Bay. Cazadero, West Healdsburg, 1 1/3 inch. Yountville, over 1 inch of rain. And Calistoga also had just shy of 1 1/10. Try and get as many areas as possible. But North Napa, 1 1/4. Santa Fe at over 1 inch. Santa Rosa, 83. That's in town. Dillon Beach, 3/4. Sonoma, 3/4. Novato, almost 3/4. Petaluma, 1/2 inch. And the Napa Airport picked up 45 1/100. System fell apart around Richmond, Rodeo, east and south. It just didn't have much punch. And you can see it's gone through to the north, and it's falling apart south. But Santa Cruz Mountain's now getting rain. I know there's been about 1/3 to almost 3/4 of an inch there. So it's finally showing signs of picking up areas in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Of course, the lift helps down there, but other areas won't get that much. 50s on the temps, a couple of 60s. This is a mild air mass. Same up in the mountains. It's about thunderstorms up there. Look at that, boom, boom, on 80 and 50, and also wind. Any snow, maybe we'll get some late tonight. Some of that cold air has to come in maybe down to lake level, but it's more about wind and rain and thunderstorms up there. Now, we'll get a mix of sun, clouds, and maybe some fast-moving showers zipping through today, but it'll be a windy day for many here. Some sun breaks, though. They're already showing up. 60s on the temps. There will be some light rain off and on to the north Thursday and Friday, but it does look good for your weekend.
Steve, thank you. The government shutdown is entering day 36. It is now the longest on record. Airports nationwide struggling with flight delays. Now, the Secretary of Transportation's warning he may be forced to close parts of the airspace if the air traffic controller shortage worsens.
So we want to hear from you about this. Let's go to Andre Sr. You have a viewer poll of the day.
Dave Garcia, good morning to you both. This morning we're asking this. Despite flight delays and staffing shortages, are you traveling in the coming weeks? And your options are yes, plans are set, I'm driving instead, or no, I am staying put. Right now, you're staying put 76%. Go to KTVU.com/vote. Let us know what you think about our question of the day.
All right. Very interesting. It's a whole other layer of something to think about.
It is. And as we go to break, take one more look at the poll. You can scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen. It'll take you to our poll, and just keep voting. Welcome back to Mornings on 2 at 7:46. Here's some of the stories we're following for you. The San Francisco Police Department has launched a new campaign to help solve homicides, including cold cases. The department is offering rewards of up to $250,000 for information that leads to criminal charges. Now, that's a change from the previous policy where individuals could only be awarded if there was a conviction. Also, legislation passed by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year allows rewards to be issued to people who have a criminal history.
California is ending its program that gave some lower-income Californians electric bike vouchers and is moving that money toward electric vehicles instead. The program offered up to $2,000 for each person who qualified starting at the beginning of last year, but now the California Air Resources Board says it's redirecting the money to an electric car incentive program due to state budget constraints. The Trump administration recently ended federal tax credits for EV purchases. The Warriors beat the Phoenix Suns 118-107 last night. The Warriors were looking to bounce back at home after losing back-to-back games on the road last week. Golden State jumped out to a huge early lead against the Suns, but had to hold off a late-game rally to remain unbeaten at home. Stephen Curry led the Warriors with 28 points, drilling 5 three-pointers. Moses Moody added a season-high 24 points off the bench. Tech's influence on politics continues to grow, and Elon Musk and Tesla investors are waiting for a very important vote.
Well, Garcia, Pam Cook is back here with the details, and there's mixed news for a very popular local company in today's dollars and cents.
This is, I'm sure, the frustration for going public and being a publicly traded company. San Francisco-based Pinterest reports third quarter sales are up 17% year over year. Net income came in at $92 million, up 200% from this time last year. However, Pinterest stock dropped more than 20% when the opening bell rang this morning because those results maybe not quite as good as Wall Street expected. There also may be some profit taking for Pinterest stock. Another Bay Area company rang that opening bell this morning, HP Inc., celebrating 10 years as a standalone company. Taking a live look at the numbers, a nice recovery from the big rout yesterday, particularly for the tech stocks, with the NASDAQ down huge yesterday. You can see the Dow Jones up a little bit, the S&P 500 up almost 0.5%, back above 6,800 right now, and the NASDAQ gaining 0.75%, up 164 points, getting help from another Bay Area company, AMD, this morning. Google and cybersecurity company Wiz are one step closer to finalizing their $32 billion merger. Wiz told the Wall Street Journal the Justice Department has concluded its investigation into the deal and found no antitrust issues, but the company says the merger is still under review by other regulators. A federal judge in Virginia is expected to rule whether Google needs to sell some of its ad tech business to avoid a monopoly. 5 tech companies put nearly $6 million towards lobbying during this legislative session. That is more than double what the same companies spent last spring. The companies are Meta, Verizon, Google, AT&T, and DoorDash. Meta spent the most at $3.4 million. Verizon followed with $2.2 million, and Google paid about $1.7 million. It is a growing trend of tech titans working to influence politics. You might remember Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft gave $1 million each to President Trump's inaugural committee back in January. And Tesla shareholders face one of the biggest decisions in the company's history as they vote on a mega pay package for CEO Elon Musk. The board is offering him up to $878 billion in stock to ensure he stays to deliver on his promises like self-driving robotaxis. The massive sum is tied to Tesla reaching an $8.5 trillion market value. Now, some shareholders believe Musk is the only person who can deliver on Tesla's promises. Others say a publicly traded company's future should not depend on one executive. I'm Pam Cook. That's a look at your dollars and cents.
All right, Pam, let's start in the South Bay this time when the traffic. I want to show you that the South Bay commute is busy, but there's nothing completely unusual. We had an earlier crash in the Santa Cruz Mountains, so if you drive from Santa Cruz to the valley, this morning's going to be a little bit slower coming over the hill. With that said, when you get down to the valley, it looks like a normal day. It's windy, but it hasn't been raining a lot in the south. The North Bay is a completely different thing. It's been raining there, and we've had some slow traffic in a lot of these spots. Southbound 101 is still slow from Novato to Central San Rafael, and the East Bay commute is slow. The Bay Bridge backed up from before the maze. 7:51. Let's bring Steve back with today's weather.
Sal, most of the system has gone through, but it looks like wind speeds are coming down and rainfall is definitely falling apart as it moves south. But we'll show you some here. Mount Diablo, Lucas Valley, 66 mile per hour gusts. There were some in the really higher elevations that were 70. La Honda, 56. Lime Ridge, 48. SFO in Oakland at 40. There were, I think, Half Moon Bay was 40. I think Livermore Airport was about 40. The strongest wind gusts associated with the front, I think that's moved through. It'll still be a blustery day, but high wind warning, Marin Coast, Sonoma Coast, wind advisory until 4 o'clock today. But the system has just zipped on by, and as it moves south, it's losing a little bit of its punch. Rain is picking up, though, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Cazadero and West Healdsburg over an inch and a third. Yountville and Calistoga both about an inch and 10 100ths. Focus on Marin County now. Mount Tamalpais picked up 89 100ths, not the most. Woodacre, 1.05, San Rafael, 103, Novato Library picked up 0.87, and Fairfax picked up 0.70. Our system moved through rapidly. I mean, it's clearing. There'll be some mix of sun, clouds. I mean, there's plenty of clouds there. We're not done. It'll be a blustery day, but the main bulk of this system, this narrow cold front, now has numerous holes in it to the south, so it's losing its punch. 50s, 60s on the temps, mild air mass. Not a lot of cold air with this. 40s, 50s in the mountains. Don't expect much in the way of snow until maybe late tonight, but definitely rain, wind, and some thunderstorms up there. If we can get that snow level down to lake level, we'll get maybe 1 to 4. Kirkwood could sneak in with 5, but again, this is going to be more tonight, not today. A lot of activity here, but the system winding down, but we're not done yet. But wind have changed. It'll be a blustery day with a mix of sun, clouds, and now we'll go with some scattered showers. The main front, though, has already done its damage here. 60s on the temps. There'll still be some light rain off and on north. Thursday, maybe early Friday. Then the weekend looks pretty good, Dave.
All right, Steve, thank you. Time is now 7:53 in Marin County, a show of solidarity. We'll hear from a woman in Novato helping her neighbors who are struggling to get CalFresh benefits because of the government shutdown. And chaos in command. Next at 8 o'clock, what a new report says about the critical missteps in the LAPD's response to the deadly Palisades fire. Welcome back to Mornings on 2 at 7:56. As the government shutdown continues, we're hearing conflicting messages from the White House about funding for federal food assistance programs. Now, President Trump posted on social media that money for SNAP would not be given out until the government reopens. Then the White House press secretary said the Trump administration would comply with orders from 2 federal judges to fund the food programs. UC law professor David Levine said the judges will likely give the administration the benefit of the doubt about complying with their orders for now.
I think the judges instead will say, why don't we talk at the end of the week? Why don't you show me specifics? Why don't you get me the right person who is in charge of dispersing this money, and we'll talk on a faster schedule.
Now, Bay Area counties are stepping in to help deal with food insecurity. San Francisco, Marin, Sonoma, and San Mateo counties have already approved temporary assistance measures, and help from Contra Costa and Alameda counties is being worked on as we speak. Well, a woman in the North Bay is finding a new way to help people in desperate need of help during the cutoff of the CalFresh benefits. Sayarban Gibson of Novato has been building little libraries around town. Now, she started out providing books that are banned in schools around the country. She called it the blacklisted bookshelf. Well, now she's changed to restocking the libraries with non-perishables and essentials like feminine hygiene products and deodorant.
If our government is not going to take care of us, we need to find and help each other.
Is hoping to inspire others in the North Bay to turn their libraries into food pantries. Time now 7:58. New this morning, California's push to hand out funding for hydrogen projects. It's on hold right now. Politico is reporting the public and private project announced the pause is because of the loss of $1.2 billion in federal funding last month. Now, that plan would fund hydrogen plants around the state, including one at the Port of Oakland. The project is now shifting to a new model to try to retain federal funding.
This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you, you matter, we care.
California voters shaking up the map, passing Prop 50. What's next in the fight to redraw districts and the legal battles that may be on the horizon? As air traffic controllers face second missed paychecks next week, a new warning from the transportation secretary, and the government shutdown that's got Bay Area residents rethinking plans for air travel. And with no funding for the federal government, FAFSA applications could face delays. We explain what is still working and how California students can protect their aid.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
All right, welcome to Mornings on 2 as you look live at the choppy waters of the Oakland estuary. The boat's there in the distance. Yes, we have a dark and stormy morning across the Bay Area where a weather system off the shore is definitely impacting our weather. High winds and wet roads across the Bay Area today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Andre Sr.
Good morning. I'm Gassia Mikhaelian. It's Wednesday, November 5th. This is that weather morning we've been talking about. Steve Paulson told us about this a week ago, and now it is here.
Well, it came in as advertised, but boy, it's falling apart south of the Golden Gate. Not that you're not getting some rain, but it's been more of a wind event south. Light rain is making it, but around San Francisco, Oakland, east and south, it's losing a lot of its punch. But still, we're not done yet. But the initial band went through, and it was all about Marin County North. 50s, 60s on the temps, but San Jose is even getting rain, so it's not. Santa Cruz Mountain's getting rain. But it was a windy morning, gusts anywhere from 40 to 60 on 6 on this panel. There were gusts higher than that, some of them higher elevated, a couple thousand feet. But, I mean, anywhere, Mount Diablo 66, Oakland Airport and SFO, both at 40 miles per hour. It'll be a blustery, mostly cloudy, partly sunny day here with off and on rain. Wind advisory goes until 4 o'clock. That high wind warning verified on the Marin Sonoma coast. You can see our system moving through. It loses some of its punch east and south, but still kind of holding together, so we'll give it credit. But thunderstorms certainly north and also east in the mix. Probably not in my forecast zone, but we'll mention it. Wind of change, no doubt about it here. Windy Wednesday. Sun breaks, clouds mild, and maybe some occasional rain here will take us into the morning hours. 60s on the temps. All right, Sal's here. We've both been dancing as fast as we can at 8:01. He begins with
the Bay Bridge. Things have improved there, Steve. Earlier in the morning, we had rain there. Now it's not raining. It's a little windy still across all Bay Area bridges, and that's going to get your attention no matter what you drive. You're going to feel the wind tugging at the steering wheel. San Mateo Bridge is a good example. We had a crash on 92, by the way, near Industrial. And then when you get to San Mateo, the metering light, the transition ramp from 92 to 101, there's a metering light malfunction. It's causing slow traffic. I would perhaps think about using the Dumbarton Bridge, but that's slow as well. 8:02, let's get back to the headlines.
Thank you, Sal. California voters voted overwhelmingly to approve Prop 50 last night. It calls for temporary redistricting and a new congressional map that heavily favors Democrats.
KTVU's Tori Gaines in the newsroom with the latest voting numbers and what they mean. Good morning, Tori.
Good morning, Andre. It was a decisive night for California politics, and the Prop 50 vote will have ramifications on California's congressional representation from 2026 to 2030. Now, Prop 50 passed with more than 60% of the vote, and this morning, President Trump saying the Republican losses last night were tied to the government shutdown.
I thought we'd have a discussion after the press leaves about what last night represented and what we should do about it, and also about the shutdown and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that. But I was honored that they said that.
Now, California's Democratic leaders have made promises to voters to push back against the Trump administration and Republican policies across the nation. And this is one of the first big steps we've seen this year. And Democrats are celebrating the win.
This is about California saying enough. We're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to let them cheat. We're not going to let them steal the election. We're not going to let them throw people off of health care. We've had enough.
California has 52 congressional districts, 43 of which went to Democrats in the last election. Now, the redrawn maps target 5 of the 9 Republican districts, including districts 1, 3, 22, 41, and 48. Now, these districts are scattered across the Golden State from Redding to San Diego, including Eastern California, Lake Tahoe, Bakersfield, and the Central Valley. Now, coming up at 9, we will hear from more Republican leaders on how they are responding to last night's results. Reporting from the newsroom, Tori Gaines, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, Tori, thank you. Meantime, critics of Proposition 50 did not have much to celebrate and don't have much to celebrate this morning. Some gathered for a watch party at a sports bar in Los Gatos where the atmosphere was subdued last night. It was announced on television that the measure would pass only seconds after polls closed last night.
I think nationally, we're going to see a lot more redistricting. This is just beginning now, and I think that in the end, Republicans will end up winning on this and picking up more seats than the Democrats.
Several local Republican groups decided not to hold watch parties, anticipating the measure would easily win. Republicans say the Democrats, quote, deceived voters.
Because the people of California have been lied to. They've been lied to by Governor Newsom and the elites here in Sacramento. And these election results just proved that they campaigned on a whole lot of lies and drove emotionally charged arguments to get people to vote against their best interests.
The new congressional maps will be in place through the 2030 election, and already several Democrats say they'll be running in newly created districts currently held by Republicans.
The 2026 midterm election is 1 year away, and no matter what happens with states redistricting, Congress will see a major change. A record 31 House representatives will not seek re-election. 20 are Republicans, 11 are Democrats. Political analysts say if more states start redistricting, even more representatives will likely leave. For example, if you're a Republican in Congress in a California district that'll be rezoned, you may choose to retire rather than face a long uphill fight that will likely end in a loss.
A ballot measure in the South Bay is also shaping up to be a referendum on President Trump. In Santa Clara County, voters decided to approve Measure A, a 5/8 cent sales tax that would start next April and last 5 years. 57% of voters supported the measure. Proponents say the tax is needed to counter the economic impact of cuts by the federal government. Those changes reduced the amount of funding Santa Clara County will receive from the federal government, including for Medicaid programs. Measure A won't offset the entire amount, but proponents say it will help keep health and public safety services afloat.
We need
the tax money to keep all the services in Santa Clara County running.
And if we are to contract or consolidate or close in any way, it impacts every resident, regardless of their income, regardless of who provides their insurance. And I think we have made that very righteous case.
Opponents argue the county needs to cut spending in order to remain solvent. Backers say the measure will generate about $330 million a year to be used for local services, including hospitals, mental health, and public safety.
College students are increasingly feeling the impact of the government shutdown. Loans and Pell Grants are still being funded because they're considered mandatory spending. But because there are far fewer workers at the Education Department, applications will be slower to process. This includes FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid.
Still recommend actually getting it in as soon as possible because all the applications are time-stamped. So when the government reopens and they begin processing those applications, it will be on a first-come, first-served basis.
FAFSA is required for most forms of federal and state college funding. The federal deadline to file is June 30th, but experts are telling students not to wait and to stay on top of financial aid emails, letters, and online portals. They say there could be changes and updates that affect your application. The government shutdown is entering its 36th day, is now the longest on record. Airports across the U.S. continue to struggle with flight delays. Air traffic controllers are working without pay, with many calling in sick, while others work overtime, which is creating major staffing gaps nationwide. The Secretary of Transportation warns he may be forced to close parts of the airspace if the air traffic controller shortage worsens.
The longer this goes on, every day these hardworking Americans have bills they have to pay, and they're being forced to make decisions and choices. Do they go to work as an air traffic controller, or do they have to find a different job?
13,000 controllers could miss a second paycheck this week. The FAA says nearly half of all major air traffic control facilities are short-staffed. Many airports are warning there could be mass flight cancellations if conditions continue to deteriorate. People we spoke with at Oakland Airport this morning were not happy.
Yeah, it's crazy. People are going to miss their holiday plans. They've been planning for months what they're going to do. They're going to miss their friends and family. It's just ridiculous. They can't get their act together.
Aviation experts say short-haul flights are more likely to be impacted as airlines try to consolidate flights. Right now, all three major Bay Area airports tell us they've seen no major local disruptions due to the government shutdown.
Well, it's 8:09 now. The Los Angeles Police Department released a report identifying major shortcomings in its response to the Palisades fire. The review cited breakdowns in communication, sloppy record keeping, and poor coordination with the city's fire department as key issues. The agencies failed to establish a unified command structure despite working from the same post, leading to confusion about who was in charge. The fire department is also facing scrutiny, including for poor coordination with the police department.
All right, there's a problem with one of the metering lights in San Mateo on 92 near 101, and that has been causing a lot of slow traffic in the last few days, all the way over to the interchange here of 92 and 101. Therefore, the San Mateo Bridge itself has been pretty busy all the way across. And hopefully they'll figure it out because it's been not a very good week for the San Mateo Bridge. You may want to think about using the Dumbarton Bridge. However, other people have already thought of that. It's pretty busy on that bridge as well. Let's talk about some of the other commutes like the Bay Bridge. That looks a little bit more normal. It is backed up to the Maze. Good thing for us is most of the rain, at least south of the Bay Bridge in the middle of the bay, has stopped, but it's windy out there. Steve and I have been talking about the wind. If you drive, especially if you drive a small car, you're going to feel that tug on the steering wheel, so you have to be extra alert. 8:10. Let's go back to the desk.
Well, election shockwaves stretching throughout the country. The big wins for Democrats in New York City, Virginia, and New Jersey.
California leaders cite financial pressure for their decision to do away with a program that helped low-income Californians buy e-bikes, where the money is going instead.
Jacoby & Myers has been a proud part of the California community since 1972. We've stood by our neighbors, helping hundreds of thousands of families get the justice they deserve. Whether it's fighting insurance companies or fighting for you in court, we'll stand up for you. At Jacoby & Myers, we know the stakes: your family, your health, your future. For over 50 years, we've been California's trusted name in legal care. If you've been injured, call us today at 1-800-5-MILLION, because you deserve justice.
Some of the stories we're following here as the window to apply to be San Mateo County's next sheriff closes today. Applicants must live in San Mateo County and meet state requirements such as having law enforcement experience or a certification from the Commission on Officer Training Standards. Applications are open until noon. The board will conduct its final interviews and make a selection at a public meeting November 12th. California is ending its program that gave some lower-income Californians electric bike vouchers and is moving that money toward electric cars instead. The program, offering up to $2,000 for each person who qualified, started at the beginning of last year. Now the California Air Resources Board says it's redirecting the money to an electric car incentive program due to state budget constraints. The Trump administration recently ended federal tax credits for EV purchases. Democrats celebrating key wins in several off-year contests on election night.
The results set the stage for an intense 2026, with both parties now scrambling to adjust their strategy for the midterm elections. The three biggest races outside of California were all won by Democrats. New Jersey and Virginia voters elected new governors, and New York City elected a new mayor in a race that captured the attention of the nation. 34-year-old Democrat Zohran Mamdani won the mayor's election. The state assemblyman became the first mayoral candidate to receive more than 1 million votes since 1969. Independent candidate and former Governor Andrew Cuomo came in second. Both candidates spoke to supporters after the race was called.
You have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, a mandate for a city we can afford, and a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that.
And as they start to transition to government, we will all help any way we can because we need our New York City government to work.
Mamdani marks several firsts for New York City. He'll be the city's first Muslim mayor, the first of South Asian heritage, and first born in Africa. He will also become the city's youngest mayor in more than a century. Now in Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger has been elected governor, beating Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. The former CIA officer is the state's first female governor. Spanberger will succeed Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, who was not allowed to run for a second term due to the state's term limits.
We sent a message to the whole world that in 2025, Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship. We chose our Commonwealth over chaos.
And in New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill was elected governor. She beat Republican Jack Ciattarelli, who was endorsed by President Trump. Sherrill, who is a member of Congress, will succeed term-limited Democrat Governor Phil Murphy. Sherrill will be the state's second female governor.
It appears two town council members in the Marin County town of Fairfax will keep their jobs. Right now, 55% of voters are against an effort to recall the current mayor, Liesl Blash. The other Fairfax City council person is facing a recall, and that's Vice Mayor Stephanie Hellman. The result of that vote similar: 54% voting against an effort to recall her from office. The Fairfax recall effort focused on a 243-unit building and whether it meets state housing mandates. Some residents say the plan was made without proper fire and flood safety considerations. Ballots are still being counted here. The Secretary of State will certify all results December 12th.
It has divided the community, which has been awful, but it's also setting a precedent for recalling when there's been no malfeasance.
Democracy is at stake, especially with Proposition 50, and we're going through a recall right now. And so it affects it at the local level as much as it does, I think, on the national level.
Ballots are still being counted. The Secretary of State certifies them December 12th.
All right, let's go out and take a look at a few things here. First of all, the Bay Bridge is backed up, as it would be. It's nothing unusual for it to be slow this way, but it's not going to be a walk in the park there. It's pretty windy across all Bay Area spans. The San Mateo Bridge, windy, and also we had some problems with the metering lights at the 101-92 interchange. The whole thing is slow. Dumbarton Bridge might be your option. I want to mention something here that is a crash of a truck that was carrying one of those prefabricated houses here. I'm going to bring it up here. I can push the button and show you that it's on the ramp from northbound 680 to eastbound 580. And you see the tow truck there trying to right the whole thing. That ramp is closed until further notice. Again, northbound 680 to eastbound 580. And I think the wind may, I mean, I don't know, but it's windy out there, and that may have been a factor when it comes to something like this, taking a ramp that's elevated with gusty conditions. If I were a betting man, I'd say, well, that probably had something to do with it. But now they're moving. It's going to be at least another hour out there. These are live pictures, by the way. 819. Let's bring Steve back in here.
Was that at the Altamont Pass near there?
No, that's northbound 680.
Okay.
To eastbound 580 at the Dublin interchange.
Aha. Thank you, sir. All right. We will still have a wind advisory throughout the day. It looks like some of the strongest gusts have already occurred. High wind warning. Definitely verified for Marin Headlands, Point Reyes, and the Sonoma coast. There were gusts 65 plus miles per hour, mainly in the higher elevations. But Mount Diablo 66, Lucas Valley at 66, La Honda 56, Lime Ridge 48, SFO in Oakland. There were numerous areas at 38 to 40 miles per hour. Still gusting there. Half Moon Bay gusting 37, SFO 36, Hayward 32. I know Livermore was up to about 38 now, only 26. But it's a blustery day, and you can see in the higher elevations that no doubt about it, south-southeast breeze there. It's been roaring. The front itself, though, is losing its oomph, falling apart. It did exactly what we thought it would. It did pretty good rain up in Marin County north. South of that, it just tailed off dramatically. Cazadero, West Healdsburg over an inch and a third. Yountville and Calistoga also both over an inch of rain. Go to Marin County now. Mount Tamalpais got beat. They only had 89 100. San Anselmo had over an inch of rain. San Rafael had over an inch of rain. Novato 87 100s, and Fairfax at .70. Other locations, we'll head up to Ukiah, had good rain, an inch and a third up there. Mount Veeder also an inch and a third. Lake Sonoma over an inch. Santa Rosa downtown 87. Redwood Fire Station, Highway 17 above Los Gatos, 3/4 of an inch. Sonoma 3/4. Clear Lake, thank you, Chloe, .65, and Napa Airport picked up .45. System is moving through, but it's weakening as it moves south, but picking up about a .05 to a 1/10 of an inch areas south, although Santa Cruz Mountain's getting a little bit more. I know Morgan Hills had .06, but it's just not much left unless you're around Santa Cruz Mountains, where there's still a little bit of punch. 50s, 60s on the temps. In the mountains, it's really going to be more about rain and thunderstorms than anything else. You can see right there by Carson City, wind and rain, thunderstorms on 50 and 80, maybe some snow late tonight. See this next system barreling along right here? I'll show you right here. Coming in right there. Yeah, let me put right there. Let me get something going right here. See, so we're not done yet right there. See, these will move through. So we'll get some mix of sun clouds, and then we'll get a little bit more rain here. Might even take us into Thursday and early Friday. Wind and rain, heaviest north, windy Wednesday, some sun breaks, clouds, kind of mild, not really cold, 60s on the temps. I mean, we're done with the initial front, but we're not done completely with the rain yet, though. That'll take us to early Friday. Your weekend, though, looks good.
Thank you, Steve. Now that Halloween is over, you may be wondering what to do with your jack-o'-lantern. Some easy ways to help divert it from the landfill and whether or not you can bake it and eat it safely.
25 minutes after 8, Google is introducing some new changes to make its maps more interactive.
Pam Cook upstairs with that, and a local company stock that's down despite reporting good news today early on in dollars.
Yes, Pinterest. Everybody, who doesn't have a Pinterest board, or many, and they're sharing them and adding to them. But Pinterest has been doing really well. San Francisco-based company reports third quarter sales are up 17% year over year. Net income came in at $92 million. That's up 200% from this time last year. However, as the opening bell rang this morning, Pinterest stock dropped more than 20% because those results are still apparently not as good as Wall Street expected. They wanted to see a little bit higher in terms of earnings per share. There may also be some profit taking of Pinterest stock. And by the way, that's another Bay Area company ringing the opening bell this morning, HP Inc., celebrating 10 years as a standalone company. All right, as we take you live to the numbers, nice rebound today across the board following a big loss yesterday. The Dow Jones maintaining a little bit of a gain. The big winners are on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. The S&P 500 up almost 0.5%, back above 6,800. The NASDAQ gaining 0.75% so far this morning, up 170 points. The Motion Picture Association issued a cease and desist order to Meta over Instagram's new teen safety framework. Now, the controversy stems from Meta's statement that says content for young users would be guided by PG-13 ratings, similar to a movie. The association administers the official rating system and argues this usage is false and highly misleading and must cease immediately. The concern is Meta's actions could dangerously erode public trust in the established film rating integrity. Google is making its maps more user-friendly by adding AI. Google announced it's using Gemini's artificial intelligence chatbot to offer more features. People walking from one place to another can ask Gemini for a recommendation on a restaurant, and the person can then ask Gemini to change the route to include one of those restaurants. And two former Meta employees are launching a special type of ring. The Stream Ring from their startup Sandbar can take voice notes and control your music. The company calls the ring a mouse for voice. The ring is meant to be worn on your dominant hand's index finger. It has microphones and a touchpad. It also has an AI assistant that users can talk to with or without headphones. The ring costs about $300. They're expected to start shipping next summer. I'm Pam Cook. That's a look at your dollars and cents.
Thank you, Pam. 8:28 right now. A power play at the High Court and the Supreme Court could curb President Trump's tariff powers. The new legal tools he is eyeing in case the justices don't rule in his favor.
Fired, rehired, then fired again. The FBI's back and forth moves affecting agents tasked with investigating President Trump's actions after his 2020 election loss.
I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come.
Governor Gavin Newsom celebrating a big win that could have a ripple effect nationwide. We'll break down the expected impact of Prop 50 as Republicans are gearing up for a legal fight. Then this is that wet and wild Wednesday morning Steve's been warning us about for days. Rain and wind making a mess of the morning commute. Why the timing of the storm means things are getting better fast.
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Good morning. We're so glad you're here. I'm Gassia Mikaelian.
I'm Andre Sr. It's Wednesday, November 5th. You can see behind us it's a little windy. The seas are rough, or at least the Oakland estuary is rough. So let's get down to Steve Paulson right now. He is in the Weather Center tracking it all for us. Hey, Steve.
You know, Andre, riding our kayaks in the estuary today, probably not a good idea.
Not the best idea.
So,
not at this time.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, how the wind might be a bigger factor for some than the rain. Still, though, there's plenty. Again, there's a lot, going on. We're almost done with the rain. It's kind of moved south and east, but and weakening as it goes. 50s and 60s on the temps here. A mild air mass, not a cold one. The wind definitely verified here. It'll be a blustery, windy day. I think the strongest gusts were a little earlier, though. High wind warning, Marin Coast, Sonoma Coast, wind advisory elsewhere. Systems falling apart east and south, only about a 0.05 although Santa Cruz Mountain's still getting some, but we're not done yet. I mean, I just want to show you here. See that moisture streaming across right here? Watch how that goes through. Then watch, you get a little break there, but that next one is screaming across. That'll keep some off and on rain going right there in the base of the trough. It's a strong jet stream there that's taking aim right at us. So while the initial front is falling apart and has gone through, we're not done yet. Maybe taking us even out to early Friday here. But wind of change, no doubt. A windy Wednesday. Sun breaks, clouds mild, and occasionally some rain. But the front went through this morning and did what we thought. Areas north got the most. 60s on the temps. All right, Sal is here. Dublin.
Yeah, KTVU has confirmed that was a wind-driven incident, Steve, where the truck on the ramp from northbound 680 to eastbound 580, that prefab house or a portion of it was caught by the wind and flipped off the truck. Now they have it stabilized. They're going to get it out of there. It's going to take another hour or so, but that's what the wind will do. You can tell it's windy out there, and that ramp from northbound 680 to eastbound 580 is closed, so you're going to have to use another way to get onto eastbound 580. Let's talk about the Bay Bridge. That is backed up. Remember, the bridges themselves also windy. San Mateo and Dumbarton Bridge, and also the Richmond Bridge. Pretty windy out there. Just be careful. 8:33. Let's go back to the desk.
Thank you. Rain passed through the Bay Area, but really it's the wind that's getting top billing this morning.
Yeah, KTVU's James Torres is live in Larkspur at the ferry terminal there, keeping an eye on the weather conditions. Good morning, James.
Let me tell you, there are some umbrellas this morning that are just not standing a chance. Of course, the rain is not as hard as it was hours ago, but the wind has really remained the way it's been all morning long. And the umbrellas, flags, all blowing in all kinds of directions this morning. An overly windy day, especially for people who rely on the ferries early in the morning to get to work. They're keeping a close eye on that ferry schedule. Luckily, no delays or cancellations to report to you this morning, but we can show you how the morning began for the earliest commuters. Rain in Marin County started coming down, and it was at its hardest at about 5 this morning. It's still coming down now, but the wind has been that constant element. But we've talked to some people this morning who are headed to work in San Francisco, and they say they really don't mind storms like these.
Gotta have it. Yards are getting dried out. The people like the rain a little bit. It's not so bad.
I mean, it's not bad. Being inside is a lot nicer than like having to actually sit outside. Choppiness actually isn't too bad unless it's like super windy. So it's nicer than people expect.
We can take you over to the Oakland Hills that saw some early morning rain, some strong wind as well. We're also learning first responders all over the Bay Area have been getting just a handful of calls for fallen trees or down power lines. Traffic is moving slower this morning as roads are slick and leading to some crashes. There are some reported power outages this morning as well. We do expect to hear from PG&E leaders about their storm response later this morning. We are live this morning in Marin County. I'm James Torres, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government.
California voters passing Proposition 50, a measure that temporarily reshapes the state's congressional map. The new map is expected to have significant political implications, potentially shifting the balance of power in Congress and influencing how communities are represented. To break down what Prop 50 means for the state and the political landscape, we're joined by Ken Miller, director of the Rose Institute of State and Local Government at Claremont McKenna College. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, Ken, first of all, can you really break down what this means for Democrats in California, what this decision means by voters?
Well, it's actually no surprise. California is a heavily Democratic and anti-Trump state. So it makes sense that voters would seize this opportunity to stand up to Trump and try to squeeze out a few additional Democratic seats from California to counteract what Texas Republicans did to try to expand the Republican advantage in Congress. So basically, this is a countermeasure in California to what Texas had done.
So the first time we could see this play out would be in the next year's midterm election next November, right?
Yeah, so the districts will go into place for the midterm elections. They'll be in place for the primaries. And so Democrats can expect to pick up additional seats in the 2026 elections. And then these districts will remain in place through 2032. So the 2030 election will be the last election with these districts, unless we do an additional mid-decade redistricting between now and then. But unlikely. We'll probably have these in place through 2032.
So based on what you've seen in terms of how these districts have redrawn here, we have several Republican representatives who are in danger of losing their seat. They include more Democrats in the district. Is that how it works?
Yeah, well, the way it works is that the new map allocates Democratic voters more efficiently. And so instead of winning some districts by large margins, the districts are drawn in such a way to try to maximize the number of Democratic victories. So the expectation is the Democrats will probably win 48 of the state's 52 congressional districts, which is an incredibly efficient allocation of voters because, in fact, about a third of Californians identify with the Republican side. That was about the vote against Prop 50 as well. It was about the vote for Trump in 2024. But Republicans are going to get less than 10% of the congressional seats. And so that's the way this works. It's possible to draw district lines in such a way that you really maximize partisan advantage. And that's what Republicans did in Texas and what Democrats have now done in California.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about legal challenges and the possibility of those in the future. What do you expect in terms of challenges to this? Because I'm sure on the other side, the Republicans are gearing up to try and take this on in court.
Yeah, well, a potential challenge has been taken off the table by the U.S. Supreme Court, which held in 2018 that there is no federal constitutional constraint on states disadvantaging voters on the basis of their partisan orientation. There is still in place the Federal Voting Rights Act, which is used sometimes to challenge district lines because districts have been drawn in such a way to disadvantage racial minorities. But I think it's unlikely that these maps would fall to a Voting Rights Act challenge. There was some other litigation activity prior to the election, but I think it's unlikely that courts will block these district maps.
Well, the president, for his side, he's threatening to challenge California's mail-in ballot, claiming even without evidence that they were fraudulently conducted before we even got the results yesterday for Proposition 50. Do you think that is an avenue for the administration to challenge the redistricting measure here in California, Prop 50?
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds like an echo of 2020, 2021, where the Republicans and the administration brought lots of challenges against the electoral results without sufficient foundation for the courts to rule in their favor on any of them. And I think the same result will occur here. There's really no legal basis, I believe, for a challenge to this special election.
All right, we'll see what happens next. Professor Ken Miller at Claremont McKenna College, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
While turnout was not expected to be very high for the special election, some parts of the Bay Area came away with voter engagement above what was projected at the state level. Sonoma County Registrar of Voters says her office has so far received about 151,000 ballots, that about half of those who received a ballot voted.
This is my first election in Sonoma County as the ROV, so it ran really smooth, and everyone is asking me, how is it in comparison to the other counties, or even when you worked at the state? And I said, I was not expecting it to go this smooth, something that was called, 72 days before. I think our team was ready for it, and it was election. We know how to do elections.
The Registrar Mendez says Sonoma County averages about 85% turnout in a presidential election. Sonoma County backed Prop 50 more strongly than the state as a whole. The latest count shows more than 74% of Sonoma County voters support the initiative. The FBI fired, rehired, then fired again the agents assigned to investigate President Trump's alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. This happened over the span of 2 days this week. The FBI Director Kash Patel fired the agents Monday. A U.S. attorney pushed back, and later the same day, the agents were reinstated. Then on Tuesday, Patel fired them again. These firings are the latest action in what's been a tumultuous time for the Washington field office.
Well, happening now, arguments are underway inside the U.S. Supreme Court about what's at the heart of the Trump administration's economic agenda. The court will decide whether President Trump exceeded his authority in bypassing Congress and imposing sweeping global tariffs. California Attorney General Rob Bonta is leading a coalition of attorneys general across the country in the lawsuit. The president cited the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act for allowing him to unilaterally charge tariffs on other countries. A lower court ruled against the president, saying the tariffs were an illegal overreach.
Well, still getting some rain, although the initial blast from the front is moved off and east. We're still getting some rain, and the wind still rocking there. Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. A high wind warning is out on the Marin coast and on the Sonoma coast. Wind advisory elsewhere, and this definitely verified. It's still a windy day. Some of the stronger gusts, I did see 67 miles per hour east of Montero Beach in the higher elevation, around 1,300 feet. Mount Diablo, Lucas Valley, 66, La Honda, 56, Lime Ridge, out by Concord, Walnut Creek, Clayton, 48, and SFO in Oakland, along with others. I know Half Moon Bay was in there. I think Livermore, San Jose, all around 38 to 40 miles per hour. And you're still seeing 30 plus. Half Moon Bay, SFO, Hayward south at 32, 20, 25, 30, and some of the higher elevations are even stronger. That is a robust southeast wind for many here. Well, now we're not done. I mean, we can see the back edge of that, but left behind, Cazadero, West Healdsburg, an inch and a third, Yountville, inch and 11 100ths, Calistoga, 1.09, probably more than that now. Mount Tamalpais picked up 95 100ths, but in Marin County, San Rafael is crushing it there. 1.30, Woodacre had almost an inch and a quarter. I know San Anselmo was in there. Novato Library now almost close to an inch of rain, and Fairfax at 74 100ths. Other totals are pretty good up in Mendocino County, also Napa County, Mount Veeder 1.38, North Napa 1.36, Lake Sonoma over an inch, Santa Rosa in town almost 9/10, Redwood Fire Station, Santa Cruz Mountains 0.75, Sonoma was in there, Clear Lake 0.65, and the Napa Airport's just shy of a half inch. There's still some activity going through. You can see Marin County, most of it's let up, but see how that just keeps going and going, so they can click along there with a couple 100s. Areas east and south, not nearly as much, but there's still some in the old pipeline, especially in the Santa Cruz Mountains and along the Santa Cruz coast. So while the initial blast has gone through, there's still plenty upstream. We're not done yet. It'll be a mostly cloudy, windy, blustery day. Temperatures are in the 50s, and up in the mountains, 30s there, but it's going to take a lot to get more than thunderstorms and also rain up there. Maybe some snow tonight. There's our system. There's still more upstream. We'll talk about that coming up in about 10, 15 minutes, you guys.
Steve, thank you much. Airports across the U.S. continue to struggle with flight delays due to the shutdown. This morning, we're asking, despite flight delays and staffing shortages, are you traveling in the coming weeks? And your options are, yes, plans are set. The other is, I'm driving instead, or no, I'm staying put. 63% of you say you're staying put. 28% say your plans are set, and 9% of you say you're driving instead. Scan the QR code on the top right-hand corner of your screen, or go to ktvu.com/vote. Let us know what you think. In Marin County, a show of solidarity. We hear from a woman in Novato helping her neighbors who are struggling to get CalFresh benefits because of the government shutdown. Time now is 8:48. Here's some of the stories we're following for you this morning. The San Francisco Police Department launching a new campaign to help solve homicides, including cold cases. The police department is offering rewards of up to $250,000 for information that leads to criminal charges. That's a change from the previous policy where individuals could only be awarded if there was a conviction. Also, legislation passed by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year allows rewards to be issued to people with a criminal history.
The driver of a U-Haul that reversed toward officers at Coast Guard Island, Alameda during an immigration protest is now facing federal charges. 26-year-old Brendan Monroe Thompson has been charged with assaulting federal officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Authorities say Thompson was shot in the back and then abandoned the U-Haul truck nearby. The Warriors beat the Phoenix Suns 118-107 last night. The Warriors were looking to bounce back at home after losing back-to-back games on the road last week. Golden State jumped out to a huge early lead against the Phoenix Suns, but had to hold off a late-game rally to remain unbeaten at home. Stephen Curry led the Warriors with 28 points, drilling 5 three-pointers. Moses Moody added a season-high 24 points off the bench.
Well, we're getting conflicting messages from the White House about funding for federal food assistance programs during the government shutdown. President Trump posted on social media that money for SNAP would not be given out until the government reopens. Then his press secretary said the administration would comply with orders from 2 federal judges to fund the food aid. UC law professor David Levine says judges are likely to give the administration the benefit of the doubt about its compliance with their orders for now.
I think the judges instead will say, why don't we talk at the end of the week? Why don't you show me specifics? Why don't you get me the right person who is in charge of dispersing this money, and we'll talk on a faster schedule.
Well, Bay Area counties are stepping in to address food insecurity. San Francisco, Marin, Sonoma, and San Mateo counties have already approved temporary assistance measures, and help from Contra Costa and Alameda counties is in the works. A reminder, KTVU has compiled a list of resources with information on Bay Area food banks, free meals, and other kinds of support. You'll get there by scanning the QR code on your screen or heading to ktvu.com/snap.
Now that Halloween is over, you may be wondering what to do with your jack-o'-lantern and pumpkin decorations. About 1 billion pounds of pumpkin waste ends up in a landfill every year for Halloween, but there are much better ways to get rid of them. The pumpkin isn't painted or coated in wax. You can just put it in your green bin. You can also compost the pumpkin yourself by cutting it up in small pieces, then spreading it in your garden bed, layered with dry leaves and straw to balance out the high moisture content.
Even in your own yard, if you can't compost, you can make a little bird feeder, as I've done with this one. If you have a community garden or a community farm that composts, you can ask if you can donate your pumpkins there. If you have a local zoo or a farm that wants to feed their animals, you can ask if you can donate your pumpkin there.
I think the Oakland Zoo takes uncarved pumpkins. I think
for the animals?
So. Yeah, for the animals. So this is key, though. If you didn't carve your pumpkin, you could bake it and eat it. The flesh of carving pumpkins can be kind of stringy and not as yummy as that of smaller pie pumpkins. Do not eat your pumpkin if you've carved it because it's been exposed to bacteria in the air, insects, and animals.
Man, my pumpkin looks ugly at this point. I would just throw it away or put it in the compost. All right. Let's go to the Bay Bridge. It is still backed up beyond the maze. I just think a little bit of weather goes a long way in making things slow. Some of the other commutes have been slow as well. The San Mateo Bridge just now recovering. It's been super windy out there, and we've had some issues. Northbound ramp, northbound 680 to eastbound 580, that ramp remains closed. They're making progress on getting a modular unit that came off a truck on the ramp from northbound to 680 to eastbound 580. This is a live picture. They finally do have it back on a vehicle that can get it out of there. But it did come off, and part of it, as CHP says, was because of the wind. You know, that ramp is pretty high up there, so that ramp is going to be closed. Probably, maybe, I actually don't even know. That CHP doesn't know, but they are making progress here. 8:52, Steve, the wind has been the story.
I think you're right, Sal. I mean, north it was rain, but elsewhere it was the wind. We've had some roaring gusts here. Some of the higher elevations made it over 70, but there's still plenty going on. We're not done with the rain. It's just the intense rain went through earlier. 50s, 60s on the everyone's pretty close. We're kind of stuck here. But the high wind warning verified. The wind advisory definitely verified. That goes through 4 o'clock today. In blue is the wind advisory. In red, Marin Coast and Sonoma Coast, although the wind speeds have come down somewhat. And the system has slid by, but they're already coming in. There's enhancement coming in on the backside of this. I'll put in the jet stream here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. See, look at that jet. See how that's funneling all that in there? That's the base of the trough, and there's a lot of enhancement taking place at the base of that, swinging in a little bit cool air. Some thunderstorms have definitely been popping up. So we're not done yet. I mean, we're done with the steady rain, but there'll be off and on rain. Wind of change today, no doubt about it. A windy Wednesday, maybe a few sun breaks, but a lot of clouds, kind of mild, with some off and on rain. Not only today, but taking us maybe into Thursday or early Friday. Then we'll get a break on the weekend. 60s on the temps.
All right, Steve, thank you. The government shutdown now the longest in U.S. history, and it's hitting air traffic hard. When you join us on the 9, the new warning from a top official that could force airports to cancel flights nationwide.
One woman in the North Bay is helping those who are struggling feed their families during the government shutdown. Siobhan Gibson of Novato has been building little libraries around town. She started out providing books that are banned in schools across the country, calling it the blacklisted bookshelf. Now she's stocking the libraries with non-perishable foods and essentials such as feminine hygiene products and deodorant.
If our government is not going to take care of us, we need to find and help each other.
Says she hopes to inspire others in the North Bay to turn their libraries into food pantries.
8:56, police are searching for the people responsible for vandalizing a closed middle school in Santa Rosa. On Sunday, police found nearly $5,000 worth of damage inside Slater Middle School's athletic facilities. The school is one of 4 schools closed in July by the school district to address a multi-million-dollar budget deficit. However, the athletic facilities at the school are still used by the district for sports. The vandalism isn't expected to impact any games or practices.
New this morning, California's push to hand out funding for hydrogen projects is now on hold. Politico reports the public and private project announced the pause is due to the loss of $1.2 billion in federal funding last month. The plan would fund hydrogen plants around the state, including one at the Port of Oakland. The project is now shifting to a new model to try to retain federal funding.
5 tech companies put nearly $6 million towards lobbying during the legislative session. That's more than double what the same company spent last spring. The companies are Meta, Verizon, Google, AT&T, and DoorDash. Meta spent the most at $3.4 million. Verizon followed with $2.2 million, and Google paid about $1.7 million. It's a growing trend of tech titans working to influence politics. Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft gave $1 million million each to President Trump's inaugural committee back in January.
The Ferris wheel at San Francisco's Fisherman Wharf will stay put for a while. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors approved an extension to keep the Sky Star wheel at the wharf for another 18 months. District 3 Supervisor Danny Sauter sponsored the extension, says the Ferris wheel has been an enormous success. It was moved from Golden Gate Park to Fisherman's Wharf in late 2023. The new lease runs through April 30th of 2027. Football superstar Tom Brady has revealed his new dog is a clone of his previous pet that died recently. The announcement came through Colossal Biosciences. Brady is an investor. According to the Dallas-headquartered biotech company, the new dog was created through non-invasive cloning technology that used a sample of the first dog, Lua's blood, which was retrieved before she died in December of 2023. A very short break here on Mornings on 2, a windy, blustery, but increasingly dry morning. Stay with us as Mornings on 2 the 9 starts in just 60 seconds.